What's up, y'all? It's Yoda. I have got a very special guest tonight. He just agreed to pop on the show with me, to pop on and do a podcast episode. I'm going to go ahead and stream this thing live on Facebook while I've got Sterling. He is actually driving right now, which is a way we can tie you into what you're actually doing right now, Sterling. If anybody has seen, and I know you probably have if you're following along with 0 to 60, because we shared some of the stuff that Sterling and his son, and I'm assuming, as dangerous as assuming is, I'm assuming that you may have a couple more folks working on this project with you. If you have not checked out 3D car printing on Facebook yet, go check them out. There's a link in this live stream right now. Go check them out. They are actually 3D printing a look-alike hypercar. And I'm going to let Sterling basically introduce himself, give us a little background, tell us who else is working on the project. I want to know, I know it came to be because you guys love the Lamborghini Aventador. And I believe you were playing a video game and your son was just kind of like, hey, can we build one of those? Is that how it happened? So it came together that way.
Exactly how it happened.
That's crazy. Yeah. How old is your son?
He's 11.
Okay.
And I've always been a big fan of supercars. Just could never see being able to make enough money to buy one.
Well, I mean, they are out of the reach of the normal human being. That's for dang sure. I mean, that Aventador is what is it? The Aventador now, a $500,000 car, almost.
Yeah, it's in that range. I mean, it depends on the options you get, right?
Right.
And there's.
Oh, did I lose you?
So that's somewhere around 600, I think.
Which is still that puts it up there in rarefied air for sure. And so you guys were sitting there playing Forza, and
that's right.
Your son turns to you and says, "Can we build one of these?" And then you say
sir.
Yes. And did you have a game plan already in your head, or do you have a background in this? What do you do for a living? Have you been involved in 3D printing? Seriously, I just want to know how it materialized, because most people would be like, no, we can't build that. But you're like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, I'm by training, I'm a laser physicist. So
okay.
I actually run a research and development group at a small company building large laser systems for science that is usually sold to universities and national labs. And we also sell some to the military.
Okay.
So that's kind of my background. And the first thing you would ask is, what the hell has that got to do with cars? Well, the way it has to do with cars is the fact that I'm a gearhead. So been a gearhead ever since I was a kid. Always worked on cars as a kid. Our previous project was a '69 Mustang, actually.
Cool.
And we kind of sold that to start this project. And to answer the next question you posed, which is, what was our game plan? Well, I really didn't have a game plan other than the fact that I wanted to start from scratch. I didn't want to I didn't want to do a replica, where we throw it on a Fiero chassis or something like that. I mean, that has its place, but I think we really wanted to kind of show all of what goes into building something of this nature. And then very quickly it turned into a STEM or a STEAM project to show kids how cool science and technology and engineering and the trades and all of that is, so that they would, maybe select that for their career.
That's awesome. I mean, STEM programs are absolutely amazing, and I've been involved in a couple of them in the automotive space over the years, and that's good stuff, man. So it's cool to hear that you're building this thing with your son, and you're tying it into the education side of things as well. That's very cool to hear.
That's right. And really, the 3D printing side was not originally thought of. We figured we were going to do it with, kind of standard coach building methodologies involved, and then just put a lot of technology in the car. And, I tinkered around with 3D printing about 7 years ago, and, it was kind of interesting. You could make little figurines and, maybe some RC car parts and stuff like that.
Right.
It was what I would call cute, and then, as I was looking around for ways to construct the body, that's when I saw how 3D printing had really taken off, and that you could buy these desktop printers from Amazon. And so we figured, okay, so we could 3D print this. But the problem is that the materials that you can use on a desktop 3D printer are not that robust, right?
Right.
They're kind of, like the polylactic acid is got a glass temperature of around, 50 to 55 centigrade, which if you leave it out in the sun, you're going to have a big pile of goo at the end of the day.
Right. That's not what you want your Aventador to end up being in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. So then I thought, well, we have to do something about that. We have to, either cover it or encase it. And that's when the idea of encasing it in carbon fiber came about. So I went to YouTube University and watched some people who were doing carbon fiber skinning, and also people who were doing molds, right? They were pulling parts out of molds that were made with, a fiberglass mold and stuff like that. And I figured, hey, why don't we just try encasing the parts so we don't have to make molds, and see if that works. And so that's where we started. We encased a few parts, and then we chucked them outside in the beautiful Colorado sun, which is much more intense than most places because we live at 6,000 feet. And we left it out there for a little over a year and didn't see any distortion or warping. And it also turns out that PLA can be annealed or tempered when it's exposed to heat for long periods of time. It actually, the material crystallizes and gives you a little bit better thermal capability. And then the other added benefit is, that it gives you sound deadening inside of the material. So all of that seems to be working pretty well. But at the end of the day, we're going to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you're printing the panel and then wrapping the panel and then leaving it outside to cure instead of putting it in an autoclave.
No. Okay. So let me clarify. What we do, and we have a YouTube channel. If you search Laser Sterling, you can find that. And we kind of put the process down there to kind of show people how we did it. And what it is we take the 3D prints. We can only print maybe a 1 foot by 1 foot panel at a time.
That was my next question. How big?
So exactly, because the printers are maybe 300 by 300 by 400 millimeters. So you get about a foot cube volume that you can print in. And so we print them out in sections, and then we glue them together. My daughter is very good at helping me glue things together. She really likes that part of the process. And then we do some body work on it to smooth it out a bit because that process is not perfect. And then we end up with a plastic panel. We cover it in 3 layers of carbon fiber, front and back. We use just a standard adhesive to kind of tack it down. And then once that's done, we put it into a vacuum bag.
Okay.
Pull a vacuum on it. That crushes all of the layers together. And then we feed in some epoxy. The epoxy flows through the material, saturates it, and then comes out the other end in the vacuum. And then we let it cure. Once it's cured, we pull the bag and all of the material off of it, the mold release, all of that kind of stuff. And then we have a part.
Okay. So and then once you go from that part, because I'm looking at a picture of the car right now, and I'm actually getting ready to
Mhm.
post this picture. It's the picture that's at the top of your page, sort of
Right.
rear 3/4 view, left side. Um,
Yeah.
Once you get that part, the bonding process of that part to the other parts, because I mean it looks like right now it looks like a very cohesive structure. It looks like the panels. I mean, from the picture anyway, the panels look like they were molded large scale, the full scale basically. It doesn't
Yeah.
look like they were pieced together at all. So how are you, what's the bonding process of each panel to each panel?
So each panel to each panel, we use an epoxy called MMA, and that epoxy you can get off of Amazon. A lot of people in this industry will use cyanoacrylate, which is a super glue, basically. It just doesn't have enough bonding capability in our case to hold the whole panel together.
Okay.
But once you put the carbon fiber encapsulation on it, all of the structural rigidity that is supplied by the plastic panel is no longer needed
Okay.
because the carbon fiber and the epoxy is incredibly strong.
Right. That makes sense. It just the process is like I've followed along, and I'm sure with what you're doing that you've seen what Local Motors has done with 3D printing and cars. At least if you haven't seen what Local Motors has done, check them out. Um,
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of what people are doing with 3D printing and cars, and it's absolutely amazing. And a lot of that is part of our inspiration.
Cool, cool. As basically, I was bringing them up just because they're building basically the entire monocoque. They're building like the whole chassis. They're using almost like this. It's an industrial, almost like a structure. It's a home structure architectural printer. Where you've seen those ones
Yep.
that literally will just lay giant beads and create walls and build that structure up. They're
Yeah.
using that, but they're using all kinds of different exotic substrates basically to create the monocoque, and it's amazing to watch that stuff come together. And I was just trying to wrap my brain around how you're building these small pieces and then bonding them, but it makes sense you're carbon wrapping them, and that actually gives it the structure. And my brain, I know this is not the case, but my brain immediately goes to, okay, so you wrap it in carbon, that creates the big piece, and then the 3D printed mold basically, or the 3D printed guide that's wrapped in carbon, then sits out in the sun and melts. And so, and then that lowers your center of gravity because that runs down in the carbon. But that's my brain doing weird things. No, it's just an amazing process, man. It's what is the car comprised of as far as the chassis and the running gear? And I purposely, normally I will go in and I'll do a lot of research before I do an interview like
Right.
this. I purposely
Yep.
didn't because I want the story from you. I don't want to sit here and tell the story. So what is the chassis comprised of? What kind of suspension do you have under it? Running gear, engine, drive line. Are there performance goals? What are you going to do with it once you get it truly up and running? All of that is stuff that I want to know, and I know folks following along with 0 to 60 really would like to hear because it's cool, man. It's a cool deal.
Sure. Well, let's address your last comment, which is the fact that the plastic melts and falls to the bottom of the carbon fiber form. It's actually not what's happening or what we're seeing. What we're seeing is that we're getting an annealing process, and also we're getting a bonding to the actual plastic, so it retains its structure inside of the part.
Okay.
So, of course, that's a surprise. I thought the same thing as you did.
Oh, really?
That,
okay. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
not
That
completely twisted.
no, we didn't know. We're kind of winging this whole build, right?
Right.
And so that's not happening. Now, do we get deformation in the parts? Yes. The biggest problem is that if the epoxy actually gets to pool somewhere, that mass of epoxy generates a lot of heat and will melt the part.
Okay.
And then since you have it in a vacuum bag, the atmospheric pressure will crush the part. And that's happened more times than I'd like to admit, but we have ways of repairing those distortions. You can use fiberglass reinforced body filler. We're actually using carbon fiber and epoxy in somewhat of a slurry, so that it's a little stronger than body filler. It's all made in the same material, so we're not going to get a lot of mismatched material properties where one expands at one rate and another expands at another rate, and it all falls apart.
That makes sense.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. So let's get on to the chassis. The chassis is custom built, custom designed. So we knew what the wheelbase needed to be. We knew what the track width we wanted was. So we basically just built a dual rail chassis at a 2x4 120 wall steel. And then we did the rear cage in 2x3 steel. And then the front, for the front suspension, was done in 2x4 steel.
Okay. So it's all boxed. And how faithful
that's right. Boxed. It's boxed. It's triangulated. The corners are gusseted. Other places are going to be fish plated, just to make sure that we have a nice strong chassis. Now, currently it's kind of tack welded. It's permanently welded in the, I'm a physicist, so I understand statics, and therefore I know where the critical points are that I needed to finish weld right away. And then I left the rest just kind of tack welded. That's why I get a lot of crap for people who see my welds and go, "Oh, you suck, you're going to die, blah, blah, blah." That's not the case. I can actually weld. So I just try to, show people, look, don't worry about it. Okay. It's my life. It's going to be fine. I know what I'm doing.
There's a difference between
with that aside,
and a finish weld too. So
there is. Yeah. And if you can't tell the difference, I'm not sure you're a welder in the first place.
That's awesome.
So I have a MIG welder and I have a TIG welder. I know how to use them both. I can do steel and aluminum. So at any rate, what we wanted for the engine was something that was cheap. I mean, we're really on a budget here. We don't want to spend any more than $20,000. And so we went with an LS1 from a Corvette. Yeah. We have a, go ahead.
You had to go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a Ford guy. So, but still, the LS is just huge aftermarket, reliable. And the other big reason is that now I have to do a transaxle.
Right.
So, and if you're doing a transaxle, you usually have to pull it from another car. In this case, it's a Porsche 911. And you have to invert it.
How far back did you go for the transaxle?
I went to about 2001.
Okay.
And then I have a 2003 LS1.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that this thing's going to handle the horsepower of this engine ultimately. It's going to need to be built, but as a first step, it's a good choice. And
an LS1, it's not a crazy powerful motor, right? I mean, and the car's
no.
What's the car going to weigh? Out of curiosity.
Our target is between 2,700 and 3,000 pounds.
Okay, so it's not hyper light, but it's not crazy heavy either.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about. I mean, it's coming in. It's coming in about 1,000 pounds lighter than a regular Aventador.
Okay. Well, I mean, the stock LS is going to make probably either right at or maybe even a little less horsepower than that transaxle is probably rated for anyway. And then the car's about the same weight, so it shouldn't be really bad.
Yeah, I think we're going to probably rebuild the internals down the road for the LS, and then we're probably going to rebuild the transaxle with better components. I've checked into what the case. You're eventually
going to put a Voodoo motor in it anyway if you're a Ford guy. So,
what I'd like is an LSX, but That's a kind of a pricey motor.
It's a pricey motor, and that's anti-Ford as you could get.
I know.
How could you not go Voodoo?
Hey,
That
I'm a car guy.
So
I'm just
cool.
a car guy.
So am I.
So
am I.
And then the other thing is that the company Kennedy Engineering builds a mating kit for the inverted 6-speed transaxle.
Yeah.
So
I've seen that
part was done. Oh, and it's a beautiful kit. It goes in like butter. It's just absolutely amazing piece of engineering. And then we have twin snails on it.
Oh dear God. Okay, you didn't. Okay, I didn't let you get there. Okay, never mind. So rebuild the transaxle immediately.
Yeah. We threw on a couple of hair dryers, so I'll keep my foot out of it for the immediate future.
How big are they? Tiny, just so they spool and give you a little boost, or did you go like?
They're
68
millimeter.
Okay.
No, they're 68. Yeah, they're small-ish. Yeah, we'll probably limit it to about 15 to 20 pounds of boost.
Oh, it's
and I do have a wet meth system that I can use for the engine. But yeah, again, the transaxle, that's going to be the big question mark, right?
If another human being could be my spirit animal, you might be it. This is cool, man. It's getting the more you talk, the better it gets.
I mean, cool. The car is a real Frankenstein too, because the radiators are actually from a Honda Civic, the fans are from a 911, the steering column's from an Audi, and same with the steering wheel. I mean, yeah, we've sourced a lot of parts from the junkyard.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but why not bring that stuff back if you can make it work and put it in something that you're gonna like? I mean, who cares? Just build it. Absolutely, it just sounds like such a cool project. And you've already fired the thing up, from what I understood. I did see that.
Not yet.
No, I thought you said you were going to fire it up to take it to that.
We didn't make it. I ran into a computer glitch with the ECU the day. So we wanted to fire it up on Saturday. We ran into a problem with the ECU where I couldn't communicate with it. So I couldn't set the firing order. And I'm not going to fire it up without that in there.
Right.
And then we had to go to a local, we were invited to go to a local car show. It's an annual, it's called the Rock and Roll Car Show here in Denver. It's at Bandimere Speedway, and it's, 20,000 people, and they did like 170 car burnout, and, it's just a big, huge venue. And so we decided to just pull the plug on starting it and concentrated on getting it down to the show.
Right.
So I think the next step that we're going to do is I'm just going to take all the panels off the car, and we're going to get everything hooked up and running, and then we'll put all the panels back on the car and then hopefully drive it around.
Well, I can't wait to see you drive it around. I'm guessing when you start driving it around, it's going to be on as little boost as you could possibly put to it at first, to shake it down a little bit. I'm guessing.
If any.
I mean,
if any.
If any. Okay. I could be totally wrong, and you'd be like, "Nope, full send." I was like, "Okay, cool. I respect that."
No, yeah, that's a good way to blow stuff straight out.
Totally
to barf your guts all over the street.
There are two mindsets, man. It's either we're gonna step it up gradually and be very nice to it, or screw it. It's like hammer this.
Yeah,
thing.
Well, I'm over 50 years old, so I'm past the screw it and do it. So, I'm more cautious these days now that I'm older.
I kind of get that. I just turned 49 a couple weeks ago, so I'm behind you, but not very far behind you.
No, you're in my neighborhood.
I'm right. Yeah, we're hanging out together. Do you have any performance targets for the car? Do you have any aspirations to potentially autocross it or track it or anything like that? Or is it literally something where you're just like, this is my 3D printed Aventador lookalike rat rod, and we're just going to take it out to shows and enjoy it like it's a hot rod?
We're gonna polish her up. We're gonna make her look pretty. So
Okay.
we're gonna paint her. We're gonna paint her Arctic white, and leather interior. All of those types of finishes. She's gonna have AC. We made the cabin nicely comfortable because I'm, like I said, I'm getting old and I don't want to have to roll in and out of the car. Power steering, power brakes, the whole 9 yards.
Cool.
We're gonna do the interior as mainly kind of a glass interior, so that we're not gonna have buttons. We're gonna have virtual switches and things of that nature.
Touchscreens. Yeah.
Touch screens. That's correct. Yeah. So we're gonna try to keep it nice and clean.
CAN bus stuff and.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
we've got it set up that the dash itself is a Dakota Digital dash, custom made for us. It's got a ridiculous speedo on it that goes up to 400 kilometers an hour. I just thought that would be hilarious. So we did that. That works on a race pack CAN bus.
Okay.
And then we have a Holley Dominator as the ECU, which works on their CAN bus. So I've separated out the two CAN buses, and then we'll be able to communicate and output any of the digital stuff that we want to do.
Cool. I have a really good friend who's a Holley EFI genius. If you have any questions, man, hit me up and I'll.
I'm sure I will. I mean, I used this on the '69 Mustang, but I let the ECU do most of the work.
Right. It's this guy. I can put you in touch with him. He has forgotten more about Holley EFI stuff than I will ever know. And I don't know much. I don't pretend to know much. I drive the car. I am driver monkey. that's my function in this whole thing. But yeah, it's if you need any help with that, man, just reach out. Let us know. I'm sure Kent would be more than happy to chime in.
Yeah,
project.
Please drop me his contact information.
Sure. I can do that. I can definitely do that. So you're driving home right now. I got you on a drive. What's the man that is 3D printing an Aventador lookalike? What's your daily?
I'm not going to tell you.
Is it that bad?
It's a Chevy Volt.
No, it's not bad at all. That's
it's got 300 foot-pounds of 0 RPM torque. So
yeah, if you could ungovern that car, it'd be an absolute beast.
Yeah, you get up to about 60 and she conks out, because that's just electric motors for
right.
you. But off the line, she's an absolute beast.
No, man,
I get a lot.
Nothing wrong with that car. That's actually a cool.
Yeah, I get a lot of Subies wanting to beat me down off the line, and they're a little surprised when the car just leaves them.
You might race as many of them as you possibly can, and the odds are that eventually one will explode running right beside you. It will literally just all of the ringlands will just go at the same time, and it's spectacular when that happens to a Subaru. I love Subarus. I give them crap, but I love them, and I'd love to own one. Actually, the boxer motor sounds fantastic, but I digress. Thank you so much, Sterling, for taking the time to jump on with us, man. I just
not at all.
I saw your
I'm happy to do it.
I was like, this is the coolest thing, and it really does, I think, not necessarily open the door, because the door has been opened for 3D printing to have a huge impact on whatever aspect of vehicular hobbies that you love. But seeing someone take on a project of that scale, utilizing 3D printing at home, I don't know whether anyone else has done that. Have you seen anyone else going down that path? Because I haven't, and there was I posted on our page somebody who was doing a DB4. Okay.
I don't know if they finished the project, but all they were able to show was that, yes, they could 3D print and glue together a panel. And, that's, so it's been, we're not saying we're the first, but I think what we've done that is unique is the carbon fiber encapsulation of the 3D printed parts.
Right.
So that I have not seen. And that's what really about this project is an experiment that actually turned out with good results.
That's awesome. Anything that pushes technology forward and basically it's you're putting some exotic materials closer to the reach of the hobbyist, and that's a cool thing, man. That's really a cool thing. And
you can see the power of this, right? So say you're a better artist than I am, because all I did was modify the panels ever so slightly, and you want to do something on the order of what Kaisel Salim does, right? He does just amazing artwork. The B is for Build guys are using his renderings for their build.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, the talent there, and being able to use 3D printing to bring that to life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
absolutely.
That's just so totally cool.
We shared
I wish he'd do a rendering for us.
I've talked to a gentleman named Rain Prisk. I don't know if you've seen Rain's work or not, but his Photoshop stuff is just it's next level. He basically shooting breaks everything. Like if it's a cool looking car and it's not available in estate form or shooting brake form, Rain adds it, and he's got Aventador shooting brakes and Bugatti shooting brakes and Viper shooting brakes and McLaren shooting brakes, and he's got some of these things, like he's got Bugatti Chiron 4-wheel drives and just like pre-runners, but they look real. And every time I see something new from Rain, I'm like, oh my God, if we could just figure out a way to bring these body kits to life, because it's stunning stuff. And
this is the way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, we shared a picture on the page. It's been several weeks ago now, and it went absolutely bonkers. It was a Super Beetle. Someone had taken the canopy, basically the top of a Super Beetle and the doors, and replaced the fenders with LMP1 style fenders. And it had an LMP1 style splitter in the front, LMP1 fenders in the rear, big LMP1 wing on the back of it. It was epic. I mean, epic in the truest sense of the word. And ever since I've seen your project, after seeing this Beetle, I'm like, I need to talk to Sterling and see if we can print some Beetle fenders. But it seems like it's potentially doable. One question that I definitely want to ask, now that I've talked about the Beetle a little bit and the potential application of being able to print whatever you want to print, curved panels. Do you see any issues with, because these are very highly sculpted, Beetle-esque, yet widened and LMP style fenders for this thing? Could you do complex compound curves?
Have you seen the Aventador?
Well, it's mostly it's flat stuff.
Well, if you look at the rear quarters, those are 2 inches on each side wider than the regular Aventador, and they have a very heavy curve to them. It's
okay. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, there's a slight bow in there. For whatever reason,
this is where this stuff shines.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say no problem.
All right, let's talk. Okay. After we get done talking here, let's talk some more.
You bet.
Because I will build a Super Beetle LMP so fast, and I will put that Subaru motor in the back of it. That would be just the best thing ever.
There you go.
Sterling, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, man. And please,
of course,
reach out. I'll send you some contact info, and if you need help with that EFI, I'll definitely get you in touch with someone who I know knows what the hell they're doing. Best of luck with finishing this thing. Can't wait to see it fired up and running. We'll definitely share with our limited corner of the webiverse, I guess, what you guys are up to. And when it fires up and you roll it down the road, I'm sure you'll have video that we'll share on our page, man. I can't thank you enough for taking the time. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you bet. No problem. I love being here and I love talking about it.
Awesome. I'm going to say good night. Sterling, you hang out for just a second. I'm going to stop the Facebook Live. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Much appreciated. If you have any questions for Sterling after the program, if you watch this, please pop them up in the comments section, and I'll fire them over to him, and we'll see whether we can't get a little dialogue going after the fact. Sterling, hang out for just a second. Stopping Facebook Live now. Y'all have a great evening. Thanks for following us on 0 to 60. We appreciate it, y'all, and we will talk to you soon. All right, Facebook Live is done.
Cool.